Hi everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. Now, John McBride is a good friend of ours and a good friend of lots and lots of people in the music industry. He owns Blackbird Studios. His wife is an incredible country singer and they've been working together, of course, for years. Martina. Blackbird, I first went to nearly 20 years ago now when they just opened. And I remember just falling over myself. I could not believe how much gear they had. John has prided himself on collecting a schnizzle ton of equipment. He's got more Fairchilds and 47s than anybody I've ever met in my life. He's a huge Beatles fan, hence the word Blackbird. I've made many records there. I did a Frey EP there at like 7 o'clock in the morning when they were in the middle of a tour. I've worked there 3 o'clock in the morning. Our incredibly good friend, Mr. Mark Rubel, who recently died and is very, very loved by so many of you out there, was a teacher there. Not only was he a teacher there at the Blackbird Academy, I think he ran the Blackbird Academy. And he's one of the most talented, sweetest, supportive, incredible people ever. So John called a couple of days ago and said, Warren, we are releasing a 2254 plugin. Now, I'm giving you all this detail because I don't really use the 2254 that often. And the times that I have used a Neve 2254 are usually to use and abuse them. They are very much the sound of the 70s pre-SSL 4000 bus compression. Obviously, the 2254 became the 33609, for those of you that probably know more about this than me, will understand. And they were a little bit more sophisticated, meaning I think they had faster attack and release times on the 33609. And the times I remember having a 2254 are, I think, on albums I did with Dave Sardi. I remember doing 3 albums with him, and I remember they had a sort of certain sponginess to them. It doesn't really mean anything, does it, when you say sponginess? What I mean is I liked using them on room mics and most importantly on things that weren't really designed for. Like one trick to take like a single mic on a drum kit and then demolish it with compression and create a unique drum sound out of one mic. Like for instance, let's take a kick drum. Yes, a kick drum microphone and completely annihilate it and let it pump and let it become like a mono drum mic. I schnizzle you not. That's the way I have always used 2254s. Now, many of you are probably crying sacrilege, and that's okay because they were bus compressors for so many people, so many great people, so many, guys that we admire. Ken Scott, I'm sure Ken, when he was making albums, was using 2254s on master buses and probably everything in between. But for me, they've always been a fun, cool toy that I like using. So we have our good friend Joe Carroll, who's going to be doing the second half of this, who is more of a 2254 aficionado. He's actually used them on a regular basis and loves them. So we're going to do 2 perspectives here. We're going to try out the kit. It's Kit Plugins BB54. And I'm going to use and abuse it the way that I've done in the past with the hardware and see if it performs like the hardware. And Joe is going to use it in the way that he uses a real 2254. I can tell you that Blackbird's gear, as I said earlier, is second to none. So if they're going to model something, it's pretty good to do it on that. So I thought because it's the 70s, we would take the cover that we did a couple of weeks ago of The Ocean by Led Zeppelin. Jamie Humphries on guitar, Gilly on drums, absolutely superb. And of course, the great Laura Davison from Shaw. So it was a wonderful all-star band. Let's have a listen to the kick as it stands. So you can hear a bit of bleeding there, can't you? You can hear some snare, a bit of hi-hat. It's EQ'd incredibly aggressively. That's probably why a lot of the high mids are coming up and you can hear the snare. So let's just ignore all of that and go and grab the plugin. Now they have a stereo version and they have a mono version. We're going to start off with the mono. We've got limit, we've got compress, we've got fast and slow and off, full on, limit level here, limit recovery, compress recovery, an overall mix control, which is great, and a sidechain filter. So basically all of the toys that I want to be able to do some abusiveness. Okay, this is the input here. There's an auto for recovery on both the limit and that. All right, let's see what it does. Put it in bypass and bring it on. Slightly darkening it. First thing I'm going to do is try the sidechain. Obviously, there's a reduction in volume. There's no auto gain on it. I don't personally care, but I know that annoys a lot of people. They want to hear an auto gain, but it's not making it louder. So you're not fooling yourself into something feeling better because it's louder. So I think that's what bothers a lot of people. I'm going to push it a little bit harder. El Lyco. Remember, this is just a kick-in mic. Sidechain. This is what I've always loved about old school hardware is just to sort of use it and abuse itness of it. Let's just go nuts. Interesting. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, taking a mono mic, such as the kick, and turning it into a mono drum sound. It's definitely taking a little bit of the shimmer and the shine off. I suppose you would anticipate that with older gear. You know, I remember Jim Scott saying something to me once about he had that beautiful Neve that he had completely recapped and rebuilt, the one from RCA. And I said to him, how different does it sound from when you first used it, you know, back in the late 70s, early 80s? And he goes, well, I used to, you know, click it once to get it brighter. Up until recently, I had to click it like 4 times to get it to be the same. Now I just click it back to once again. I think sometimes vintage equipment, we attribute a lot of the vintage as the fact that as it gets older, it doesn't pass current as well, and it starts to get darker. And we like that. And I think that that's what they're doing. They're emulating something that's basically old because the high end is slightly dipped. It doesn't really bother me, especially on a drum mic, because one of the things that can get really, really offensive when you smash the schnizzle out like we're doing is it gets really, really bright and takes your head off. So this is going to be, so far in the whopping 5 minutes I've been using it, one of those kinds of mics that I'm going to want to have fun with. It definitely reacts the way I want it to. Let's go for a stereo version on the overall drum sound while we're here in drum world. Here's our overall. I've got an L2 on it, so I'm limiting it. Okay, so now we've got a linked stereo version on the overall drum sound. Okay, it's definitely doing that thing, isn't it? It's definitely doing that kind of use it and abuse it. It could be a parallel compressor of choice for many of us. I don't know, download a free trial and find out for yourself. It's pretty fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it now and I'm going to bring back the mix control. Just make it even more annihilated. Now I've basically created a parallel. So I've got the mix brought down, the output brought down as well. So it's, I don't know, it's pretty much the same volume. More weight on the kick because of the sidechain function. The volume's pretty similar, but the overall energy level is nuts now because of that compression. Let's have a listen to it in context of the full mix. Pretty awesome. I'm not the guy that's going to do the mid-side. I never do mid-side stuff ever. We've just been filming a full course on all these different techniques, and we have been experimenting with mid-side, but I don't personally use it. But if you're into the mid-side thing, try it by all means. Let's mess around with the limit, recovery, and compressed recovery times. When it's set to auto, it's actually quite pleasing and nice and normal. I don't know if I want it to be pleasing, nice and normal. It really does add excitement. It's very reminiscent of when I worked with Sardi, because I remember doing a band called the Mean Reds, if anybody remembers the Mean Reds, and we just annihilated the sounds with compression. I had so much fun doing stuff live, all the band together, and then just making it pump, thrilling. my mix was quite aggressive originally on this, but this is making it just a little bit more wrongified. Now, what is it? Is it because I can get a little bit more dangerous and I don't have a problem with, you know, putting a plugin like this on messing with stuff? Is it because it's reminiscent of hardware that I've used? Is it just more fun? That's the sponginess I'm talking about, that, you know? I like the slower attacks. I like hearing the transient come through. It's much better. So what's great about this is there's such a limited amount of instruments on this, we can hear it on everything. So let's put it on the vocal and let's see where we end up. In the grain, got no time to pack my bags. My foot's outside the door. I got a date, I can't be late for the hotel I bought. All I can say is, like, for me, the 2254 was something I used and abused. Whenever I saw one, great on electric guitars. I occasionally used it on acoustic, especially when it was like arpeggiated stuff that I wanted to like really make aggressive sounding. It doesn't have a huge amount of attack control, fast and slow. It's got 3 presets and an auto setting for the recovery times. The sidechain filter is obviously magical. You heard what it did on the bass guitar and the kick drum especially. This is one of those plugins that I wouldn't say it was a hammer, but I'd say it is a bring it down, go nuts on it, have some fun with it. However, Joe's probably now going to show you how to use it beautifully and subtly to mix lovely sounding music. Me, I'll just keep smashing away. All right, over to Joe Carroll. Take it away.
Hey everyone, Joe Carroll here. Excited to be with you guys today because I get to play with a new toy. Warren and Kit Plugins, thanks for asking me to take a look at the new 54 compressor. So I'm sure Warren has already told you most everything you need to know about it. Him and I talk mixing, of course, every so often just for fun, doing what guys do. And I happen to be a fan of the Neve diode bridge style. So the 2254, the 33609 are things that I just use in my mixing a lot. Maybe it's because I work on a lot of organic music, but I really think for me, they've found a home on things like acoustic guitars, pianos, sometimes electric guitars, sometimes subgroups, various things. They can be really cool on drum overheads and drum rooms as well. So they just have a unique grab, which you've probably already seen in the earlier portion from Warren. But what I thought we would do is I'm going to use it on a more organic type of song. So you heard it on something a little more rock based. Now I'm going to play something that's a little more country, Americana, and we're starting from here. So this is a track that I'm getting ready to mix, and it's just raw at the moment, but that is a perfect spot for us to put this in play and see what kind of difference we're making on some just tracks that you would start with mixing just like I would. All right, so check it out. Okay, I mean, it's great. It's a great track. Great musicianship. It's fun, but you're probably hearing the same thing I'm hearing. It's a little wide, very, it definitely unpolished sounding. Things just aren't gelling yet together. A couple. Let's just kind of start at some of my first offensive things. One of my biggest offenders was the acoustic guitar, and you'll play and you'll hear some really couple really loud spikes where he plays aggressively, and then there's moments where you're like, you really need that strum of the acoustic guitar to provide the rhythm section thing, and it's not doing it because there's moments where it's too loud uh, otherwise. Okay, so something about a 2254 for me, the grab has just always worked on acoustic guitars. So let me unbypass it and let's start dialing something in, okay? And this is our gain reduction meter right here. And let's go to the fast 5 millisecond attack, which is original to the unit. And let's go up about 2 to 1, see where we're at. And you know what we're going to do? We're also going to take the sidechain filter. I have a little preset made here just for a starting spot for me. But on acoustic guitars, a lot of times around 180, 190 cycles, there's just a big boom. And when you close mic the body of a guitar, that's just what happens. So a lot of times on acoustic guitars, I take and turn my sidechain to 200 or 210 or something like that to be just above that boom. Okay, you can really hear that 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. So bar 2 of what I play, you'll really hear that loud spike is a little more tucked in now. Okay, so now we can get a little more makeup gain out of it. And let's get a little heavier handed. And let's go up to 3 to 1. So I'm definitely hearing a lot more activity out of the strums between the spikes, which is part of the whole reason to use a circuit like this, right? I mean, that's why we're using the compressor, is to minimize the peaks so we can hear all of the great stuff underneath it. Now, I will say I don't often use the limiter in the 2254 or the 33609 unless I'm doing something on rooms. But something you could, if you wanted to do, is turn the limiter on and check this out. We'll turn the compressor off and we'll watch and get a little compression or limiting here. That's on the fast setting, that's a 0.1 millisecond. So it's very very fast. So we could engage both if we wanted to and have that spike even a little more chopped off. Now that's cool. Now what I would probably do, the 2254, one of the things we love about it, and one of the reasons sometimes people choose it over 33609, because they're very similar circuits in a lot of other ways, and Warren probably mentioned this, is that the transformer, their output transformer, and the input transformer, but it has a tone. It's got a lot of large early Neve vintage iron in it, and so it's a warm, thick, rich, very warm. So sometimes I follow it with a little more high frequency on my EQ. If I'm boosting, if I'm using a 2254, maybe I have to follow it with just a little more top end, to get it to cut through the mix or something sometimes. But nonetheless, see, to me, sometimes that's part of the value of a tool like a 2254 or various other pieces of gear, is that the top end is soft. It's not enhanced. It's not coming out brighter. And since we're living in a digital world now with Pro Tools and Logic and DAWs, I should say, serving as our primary recording method and even mixing method, A lot of times things have just too much top end, and using tools like this is a way to tame it just a little bit. All right, so that said, what's our next most offensive guy? Let's go up here to the instrumental. Okay, there's a couple things. The piano, the backbeat, and the percussion is both. You know what we'll do? Let's drag this. Let's drag it. This is over here, and let's go to JC start. And this is a good spot to use the limiter only. We'll listen to that tambourine, and it's spiky. Its spikiness is making the backbeat of the drums sound more enhanced and spiky than it really needs to be. Listen to this difference. The snare's setting in a perfect spot. Then when we add the tambourine, it's making the backbeat just too hot, a little too shrill and sharp. So what we'll do is we'll turn the limiter on, and let's see what we got here. Perfect. It's really knocking it down. Look at our meter here. And we can go hotter if we want to. We can even try fast. So that's really eliminating the backbeat. Let's see if that's the right call so we can use more of the snare drum but still get the shaky shake of the tambourine. Yeah, I like that. I like that. So speaking of that, let's just go ahead and knock out something on the overheads too. And what we'll do here, we'll go to JC Start, and you can use this in a dual mono or a stereo. You know, I'm using obviously the stereo, but like when we get to the piano, we'll go dual mono, and it'll be a big difference. But on the drums, I'm going to use the stereo version because I want both sides to react together to keep the snare drum and things like that centered up. Okay, let's turn it on fast. Again, that's 5 milliseconds. Let's go up to about 3 to 1. Yeah, 100 cycles down is not triggering the compression. And this is what we're going to do. You know, this is the late 60s. It had release times of 400, 800, 1.5, and auto. And a lot of times in modern music, that's not good enough, right? For some instruments, some forms of music. So we want faster. So a lot of times, to me, there's a magic number of 100 milliseconds on overheads. And maybe that's from using SSLs, you know, where that's the release time, the fast release on their bus compressor and things like that. It's just a magic number for me. So what I can do is I can choose 800 and hit this little button right here, the divide by 8, and it becomes 100. So we have 50, 100, and this is just a little under 200. So when we want really fast stuff, we can do that. So let's see what this is doing to the overheads. See, the drum set is it's just too rangy, too wide right here. Not wide as in left to right, but just the balance between the ride cymbal, the tom-toms, the snare drum. It just isn't right yet. And you'll see what the grabbiness of the 2254 can do. We'll need that extra 3 dB of makeup gain. And one more time, before and after. It's containing everything just a little bit better. I nudged it down just a little bit more to let the snare drum not be buried quite as much. Yeah, I mean, we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, so for fun, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this over. We're going to go to Start, and I'll show you kind of my sometimes what I do on drum rooms. And like I said, I don't use the limiter in 33609s or 2254s very often, but this is one spot where I do. You can hear it's a great sounding room, and it does already have some compression, so we don't need a ton, but nonetheless, let's just go ahead and abuse it a little bit so you get the flavor of what this circuit can sound like on a drum source. Let's turn it on fast. Let's do it to the slow, which remember, this is the limiter portion, so slow is like 1 millisecond. So it's still very, very fast. Before and after. And we're losing a little makeup gain, so let's try this. So we're getting a lot more sustain of the room, a ton more. So let's inch that in there until a point that we like it. Okay, all right. My next offensive item is going to be the piano. It's a little rangy right there too. So let's go to 54. Let's use the dual version here on the piano, because what we'll end up doing is unlinking it to get that the piano be a little more musical, to avoid over compressing one side of it. It'll just sound better, and you'll see that happen. So let's go to my, oh, I don't have a starting spot here. We're going to go to slow, which is a 50 millisecond. Let's only go to about 2 to 1 for now. Let's get the threshold up to 0. And we're going to leave the release time around 400 for now. Let's check this out. Oh, let's turn a little side chain action on. Okay, without compression. With. So it's much more contained sounding, but it still sounds like the piano. We're not destroying the transient in a way that it's unmusical sounding. So let's put that in the mix. Okay, let's listen to that same thing. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Each time that he plays that going into the instrumental, and then a couple bars later, without compression, you'll see it's just too rangy. So we definitely need to tap that down, but we want to hear what he's playing between those loud hits. So 2254 to the rescue. And then to salvage the performance of a stereo instrument, where sometimes, you know, what they're playing heavy-handed on one side versus the other, we don't want it to, you know, to turn down the whole instrument like we did on the drum overheads. So I'm going to unlink it, and I'll let you hear that. It's very musical sounding. Yeah, but I got have it just a little too loud. Let's see. Another thing that really offended me earlier was, and I'm not easily offended, but was in B3s. You know, it's another instrument that they can get really percussive at times, and the volume swells can be radical. And a lot of times I do it with very soft compression and automation, which is what I would do on a song like this. But you'll hear it. It jumps out a little too much because you don't even hear this for this to be at the right volume. So let's bring a little soft compression in there to where it still feels dynamic. It still feels like the instrument. And I'm going to use the stereo version because left to right balance is not something I'm probably going to, you know what? Let's do just for fun. We'll bring in the dual mono. Why not? But I'm going to link it. I usually link them to start, get what I want to happening, and then unlink it just to salvage the stereo feel, but not really much of a thing on the B3. Okay, so let's check this out. Let's keep it set to the slow setting. So the original just had the 1 5 millisecond thing. So what Kit has done is they've added a slower version, because again, the grabbiness of these things is what some people didn't like on certain things. So now you can slow it down to 50 milliseconds and let things be, the transients breathe a little more naturally and musical. So let's hear 2-to-1 on this guy, and let's keep it at 400 milliseconds. Release. Let me make this bigger so we can really see these numbers right here. We're getting about 4 dB on that peak right there. Let's check it out in the mix. Well, you know what we'll do? We'll need the makeup gain a little bit. Much more musical. And I can hear what's before it, and I can hear what's after it now. Check it out. Great. Great, great. Let's tackle one other thing real quick, instrument-wise, and that is this electric guitar solo. Right there, you can really hear that it needs some help to fit the mix. Okay, so let's bring up the 54 and make it a little larger. We'll go to my Joe C start, because this is an early beta, so the start hasn't even been, the starting settings haven't even been entered in there yet. So by the time you watch this, that'll all have been done for you. But let's check this out. Let's go about 2-to-1 and see if kind of the warmth and the sponginess of, let's go to fast, which would be the vintage setting here. And let's keep it at about 400. That seems like it'd be a musical thing for the electric here. Really, really taking the edge off of it. Check it out. So those transformers are really softening the edges. All right, let's check it out in the track. And we're gonna, because it's not as shrill now, we'll probably need a couple dB of makeup gain. Yeah, I mean, it just fits the mix that much better. But we have that spongy, warm, transformer-based thing happening. Okay, let's do one last thing. People talk about 33609s. There are people that swear by them on stereo buses, and that's kind of one of their main go-to tools, in comparison to something like a Manley variable mu or an SSL or something like that. So let's just try it on this song. Now, remember, they are grabby, and that's what some people love about it. Again, and that's something that some people don't. But remember, what we can do is we can choose the slow option at 50 milliseconds, and it's going to be a little slower than the SSL when it's set to 30. So our transients are still going to get through. But what I'll do is we'll mess with the fast and the slow briefly. And what we're going to do, let's go to auto. Why not? Because that's a lot of times what we're going to do on a stereo bus when we're using an SSL. So let's just give it a shot here. Let's see. Oh, we're compressing the snot out of it, aren't we? Okay, here we go. Okay, as Warren may have explained, this V, what they found when they modeled the originals was that the settings on the faceplate aren't necessarily what they say they are on the old pieces. So this vintage, for people that have original pieces and are used to those, regardless of whether it's wrong or right, that's what they're used to, you can get back to there. And they're lower ratios than what are indicated for the most part. So that said, I feel like those lower ratios is what is sounding better on this track. So let's check it out. Let's try the 400 millisecond release. It's a little more open sounding. In fact, let's try the 100 millisecond by switching this on and going to 800. let's try that. So here's bypass. So it's really I mean, it's definitely doing the thing of gluing things together, but it's definitely pushing remaining transients down in the mix, as you can very clearly hear. And I'm going to show you on the fast setting the same thing. Ready? And we could take our input down just a little bit, because I may be pushing a little too much signal into it, because it's compressing really quick. So let me turn it down 3 dB or so. There we go. That's sounding better. Here's no compression. That's what's sounding best to me. The vintage 1.5 to 1, just very light touch, maybe even with the slow. Yeah, that's going to be the settings I'd probably use. One more time. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely doing that stereo bus thing. And as you can also hear, it's not just the glue or the containment. It's doing something to the top end. All that digital stuff above 10K, it's softening it in a way that a lot of plugins don't do. And I think that would be one of the strengths to this. So there's going to be some forms of music, some songs where this wouldn't be the tool, right? I mean, there's no every song tool, every track tool, for the most part. Sometimes we are going after some kind of an organic, earthy kind of thing, and something, a tool that kind of delicately softens the top end, rounds it just a little bit, is a very important aspect of, bluegrass, Americana, some heavy rock, for recreating vintage rock, country, things like that. This would be a very valuable tool on things like that. So anyway, I really thank you guys for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this little look at how I typically use Neve diode bridge style compressors. And thank you, Warren and Kit, for having me. Happy mixing, guys.